How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. We saw a massive dip this morning. This is probably one of the worst dips that I've seen in a long time, probably since maybe last year around this time. We saw a lot of stocks down 10 to 20%. And the thing is, I think it's actually worse than it was recently, like back a month or two ago, because stocks were already down so much. Like we're seeing some SPAC stocks or some stocks that used to be SPACs that have done really well, like going up to $45, $50 a share, now in like the $10 to $12 range. Now, I want to cover exactly what I'm buying and selling because there are some stocks that I sold. There are some stocks that I bought pretty heavily today, and I want to give you my thoughts on tomorrow because tomorrow is a huge day for the stock market. So you really should watch this before tomorrow. Now, if you guys don't mind, just hitting the like button. I really appreciate that. There is a link down below to Patreon. So this is the first time that I've done this in months. I actually opened up one of the lower tiers again, and I put 50 spots available. So if you guys want, you can get in a little bit cheaper to the Patreon. There, I tell everyone what's happening right when the market opens, everything that's happening at the market closes. I give updates throughout the night if there's earnings or something like that. I tell them what I buy in the crypto market and in the stock market, and every single stock that I bought this morning very heavily is actually up a good amount, including Palantir, which is up about 20 to 25%. So we're going to go through it. So if you guys want that, there is that link down below. I'm actively looking at ways to make it even better. And if you've been in it in the past, we actually have moderators now that are going in there making sure everything's good every single day. So if you guys want that, that's down there. Also a link down there to Webull in case you want some free stocks you can trade before the market opens, because today it was very important to buy before the market opens because as soon as the market opened, everything spiked up in price. Now, I'm also going to tell you about a stock that almost has zero risk, and I told my Patreon members about this morning, and as soon as I said it, it shot up. So I'll go through that. So thank you for hitting the like button. Thank you for hitting subscribe if you haven't done that. Hitting that bell notification, even if you're a subscriber but you haven't turned on bell notifications, I appreciate that because some of it is time relevant. So we have Americans fearing this new inflation data. So we know that inflation data is coming out tomorrow. So CPI data coming tomorrow. It has a lot of people worried. We have fears because of the pipeline. We have fears because of so many different things. We had futures that priced in more inflation today, and it sent the stock market crashing. All the high multiple stocks went crashing. And honestly, I got a shot last night. I got the vaccine shot, and I felt horrible all night long. Like, I could barely sleep. I was frozen. I had like 10 blankets on. I was sleeping in a sweatshirt and socks, which I never do. And honestly, I did not feel like waking up. But once I saw the market was trading down, I was like, okay, I need to take advantage of this opportunity. And I went on a shopping spree. So I bought CLSK. CLSK is one of the 4 stocks that I bought pretty heavily this morning. I bought about 1% of my portfolio I added to, just in CLSK alone. So I bought a pretty significant amount. This company has $170 million worth of cash. Market cap's only 544. They barely have any debt. They have like $9 million in debt. They were profitable last quarter and are expecting to increase revenue by 3 to 4x over the coming quarter or over the coming quarters. And they did that last quarter also. So I know some people don't like it for a couple different reasons. It's a Bitcoin miner. At least that's how they make the majority of their revenue. But it was trading at such a discount. I got it for $14 a share today. It was unbelievable. I'm not sure we've seen that level in a long time since back in December. And this was a totally different company then. So bought some shares there, nicely up about 12 to 15% now. Palantir had their earnings today, and I think a lot of people were worried because, first of all, a lot of companies have been having their earnings and they've just been trading down even with good earnings. So I think people were worried about Palantir. We saw them drop very low pre-market. I think it was right in that $16 range. I picked up some shares at $16.50. So they actually had pretty good earnings. The thing is, a lot of people didn't like the fact that the CEO has been selling shares, but he had to do that to pay taxes for some options. And then also there's a lot of stock-based compensation right now, which is really hurting their bottom line. So that is something that has been hurting them. One interesting thing that did come out of this is that the CFO says the company is considering holding Bitcoin on its balance sheet, something that could send them up, could gain them more attention, and could really help their profitability if they buy Bitcoin. And it's something similar to what Tesla did, where it goes up, 10, 20, 30%, could really help their profitability, bring in a couple $100 million more, depending on how much they put in there, of course. Now, I don't remember exactly how much cash they have on their balance sheet, but they have been growing quite quickly. I picked up some shares at $16.50, and this is really a long-term play for me. I'm happy to hold this for years without it really paying off. And honestly, I would have bought more long-term call options in this and then CLSK, but my money hadn't settled yet. So I've been looking at that a little bit. I think it's a good deal in the teens. And at $16.50 today, I thought it was a steal. So I picked up a significant portion of shares. I don't think I doubled my position today, but I probably added 30% to my position, 30 to 40%. Then Tattooed Chef, I picked up more shares here. Just a company that has, I think, great prospects going forward. It's cheap on a price to sales ratio. It's going to be very profitable 5 years down the line. They're growing really quickly. I know that they have their earnings tomorrow, and it could trade down, right? Any of these stocks could trade down, especially tomorrow. So while I had 20% gains in a lot of these, that might not be the case tomorrow. It might be like what we've seen in the past, where it jumps up and then it falls and falls and falls and then jumps up and you think everything's good and that falls and falls and falls. So I realize that, but too good an opportunity, in my opinion, to pass up. So I picked up a good amount of shares of Tattooed Chef. Also picked up 2 shares of Tesla. It was sitting around $583. Anything in that $500 range, I think is good. Anything with a 5 in front of it. Long term is a good risk to reward ratio with Tesla. Now, it could fall down significantly more than this if we continue to see a market sell-off, but I don't think, I think there are too many companies that would be willing to pick up Tesla shares, or too many hedge funds that would be willing to pick up shares, and retail investors too, that it won't stay at those levels for very long. People get excited when they see a 5 in front of it, so people are happy to pick up more Tesla shares. That being said, there was a company too, and of course, like I said, I put buy alerts on all these right when they happened. Right after they happened, they started to tick back up. So in case you guys want that, I'm not going to sit here and say that you couldn't have figured out that Tesla was a good deal at 500 something, but sometimes it takes a little bit of a kick in the pants or something to be like, hey, don't be too greedy or something like that, like continuously buy this dip. And I realize some people are like, Sam, you've been buying the dip for months and it hasn't helped. But long term, we never know when it's going to turn, right? We never know if tomorrow Tesla is going to be at 700 and never reach the 500s again. So it's important not to be too greedy when it comes to this, because I'm sure 3 or 4 years from now, we will be kicking ourselves that we weren't buying all that we could right now. Now, one stock that I pointed out that had very low risk, like barely any at all, was NNDM. And I'm not a huge fan of NNDM, hence why I didn't buy it today. But at one point today, it was at under $6. It opened at $5.57, and in the pre-market, it got down to a market cap of $1.38 billion. So it was significantly under the amount of cash that they have. Like, it was about 5 to 10% under the amount of cash that they have. And I said to my Patreon members, hey, it bounces back up. Like, it rubber bands to the mid 6s and even the 7s almost every time it falls into the 5s. We've seen that consistently, that it just doesn't stay there for long because they have a good amount of cash. And we've seen that on a couple days where it just fell around where their cash position was. So that might just be something to pay attention to in the future, because they have $1.5 billion worth of cash from all those different stock offerings they had. Now, one stock that I actually sold, and I realized that it might come as a surprise to some people, but it's SFTW, and I sold it under net asset value. Now, I've been talking about this for several months, especially if you are in the Patreon group. Like, I've laid it out there that I am more than willing to sell this if there are deals that come up in the market that are attractive enough, because we've seen this continuous spec sell-off, and I realize I'm selling it under the net asset value. I'm selling it for a discount to what I could redeem it for. but I'm only selling it for 1% lower. And there are so many deals out there. I was happy to sell this, and I had a good position in it and use that to buy other assets. Now, I said that a couple months ago that I was buying this in the 1030 range. I was buying it right here in like mid to late March. And I was buying it because it had a very low floor and it had potential upside. But I said it will be a good store of value just in case we continue to see a sell-off. I could liquidate it and put it into something else, but it still had the upside at that point, especially with ARKX on the way. It's crazy to think just at the end of March was when we were talking about ARKX just like a month and a half ago, but it did really well. I mean, it sounds crazy to say this, but it went down 5 to 10% compared to the general market. That actually performed really well, and it's all risk reward, right? It could have gone up. It could have been a 20% increase or something if it just went to even $12, $13, but it didn't do that. I lost 10%, but I was happy to use that and buy other stocks just being able to have that and sell it and put it into Palantir made back more than I ever lost on SFTW. So I am planning on continuously buying this dip. I realize I say that all the time, but again, I think that this is going to be something where I am very glad I did a couple years from now. Like, you can sit on the sidelines as long as you want. If you time it perfectly, that's great. But today we saw Palantir at $16. I don't want to be too greedy and say, okay, no, I want to wait for it to hit $15. Because if it actually goes where we think it will, or where I think it will, if it becomes a $500 billion company, I don't think I'll be too mad that I bought it at 16 as opposed to 15. I think I would be very happy that I took every single time that I could to buy the dip and actually build up my position in it. Again, you don't know when it will just go up to $25 and never hit that $20 range, the $15 range, the $16, $17, $18 range. So I realize that some people don't actually have the money to buy the dip, but hopefully then, you have some assets that you can sell if you want to that have had that downside protection like SFTW. I've also considered selling some index funds. So I bought index funds a while ago, like a couple years ago, and I've been considering selling them because of the fact that they've actually done really well. Like, they're at all-time highs, obviously, for the S&P 500, and some of these stocks are at such good values. I am considering selling some of them and using them as some firepower moving forward. Now, of course, we could continuously see more dips, so just be cautious of that. Know that this is not like a short-term play. These stocks I've been adding to for 6 months, some of them longer than that, and I am happy to add to them for 2 or 3 years at this point, because I think as we go along this year and we see how much they actually increase revenue, how many catalysts we have moving forward, I think that Wall Street will get back on the same page as us and want to buy some of these high growth stocks. And a lot of these are actually becoming very close to profitable. Some of these stocks I talked about here today and some other stocks I've been buying. So just take that into account. Keep that in mind. Thank you guys so much. Again, if you guys want, I don't know if I will open up the Patreon again like this, but there is that link to Patreon down below. And I did open up 50 new spots for that lower tier. So you guys get access to everything that the $10 tier gets just for a little bit cheaper. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for hitting the like button and subscribe and turning on that bell notification and getting some free stocks from Webull. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.